Hello, YouTube. Peoples of YouTube. Okay, so it is midday, and normally I don't read midday, I read it in the night. But I'm waiting for my laundry to clean. So meanwhile, I shall be in my hobo garb. But I have a fancy shawl, kind of. I feel like I should wear it to make this reading more fancy. It's not even okay. It's not even a shawl. It's just fabric. Okay, let's do this. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't wear. Yeah, something like that. Yes. Let's tuck this in or something. Yeah. I have no idea. I'm like, oh. Okay. Okay, I'm ready to read now. Now that I. Okay. So yes, Jitterbug Perfume. Where we last left off, Alabar was just telling Ren about how he did not want to be executed because he had shown signs of age, and so he's like, I want to be more. Oh. Anyways, don't want to be part of the cycle. Okay. As Ren blinked her by 2 minutes lashes at his queer behavior, Alabar stood, disrobed, and turned slowly around and around before her like prime merchandise at a slave market. Save for the occasional phosphorus mark where some blade had stung him, his body was smooth and tan, braided with muscle, supple and quick, neither as massive nor hairy as many warriors who had marched behind him. His chestnut mane was chopped an inch below his ears. His beard was shaggy and full, less prominent than her own southern model. Maybe there is simply more to whiff in tropic climes. His nose was banded at the bridge with a ribbon of scar tissue. His eyes, bright as torches in an ice cave, were so blue they seemed on certain days to bleed into the sky. Alabar's mouth, what could be glimpsed of it through the whiskers, was thinner than the meaty mouths of his fellows, and at the same time less crude. It reminded Ren of her late father's mouth, and she admired it most of all. On several occasions in his company, she had come within a pucker of discovering kissing. When he had completed his exhibition, he planted a palm against his jowls and said, in a voice both defiant and shaky, "This man before you is part of the community, the race, and the species, yet is somehow separate from them. That notion shocks you, I can see. But, Ren, I cannot tolerate the passive obliteration of all that I am to myself. My deeds have not been so small that they will never be recalled around the fires. Yet that fails to satisfy my longing. My life is not merely a public phenomenon. It is a solitary adventure as well." He slapped his thighs. "It is with this difficulty that I imagine this familiar body gone cold. These limbs, this trunk, the heart that drums, they urge me, against all my training, to prevail over submission to the collective destiny." Ren's mouth opened as tentatively as a mollusk shell. "Vanity?" she asked. A wife, even in shock. She made it certain that it was less an accusation than a query. "Vanity? Vanity? I'm unsure. It feels different from vanity. If I be but vain, then the demons will kick my ghost from pit to pit. In my defense, I can only say this. I have fought for my people and would fight for them again, let them name the foe, but I am not ready to have them place the crown on another's noggin, though his be as yellow as sulphur and mine whiter than any winter's drift." For a long while Ren sat quietly, poised as if she were a blood drop on the point of a dagger. Then she said, "You seem to value my opinion, my lord. Then I say to you, it would be painful for me to pass you the poison. I would ache should I find your body still and icy, even though it meant that our clan might easier endure. Your words puzzle me to no end, but I trust you as I have trusted no other save my father. If survival through deception be your wish, then I shall endeavor to support the deceit. Most assuredly, I shall refrain from any mention of it. It is no major deceit, unless my parents lied. I have lived through but 37 feasts of feasts. I remain young and able, no matter what that treacherous hair did shout. Again he slapped his thighs. Then, all at once, the bluster drained out of him. Ah, but Wren, you may not have long to guard our secret. I have observed the habits of hares, and before many mornings there will arrive another as colorless as that last, and another, like doves at a roost. Every single day I would have to regard my head in the looking glass, yet I cannot retrieve the glass from the concubines without raising suspicion. You are more than loyal, but there is little use. He slumped down on the fur beside her. I will be your mare, said Wren. He understood and in gratitude embraced her, until at length he felt his humor return. A slow smile bent back his foliage. I have a mind to lay you down and split you like a rack of mutton. What would you say to that? You know very well what I would say. I would say those half-formed, half-crazed words the she-panther speaks when in delirium of her seasonal heat she is mounted by her mate. Alabar moved to shut the window against the beginning buzzing and bustle of the city day. Then he thought better of it and left it wide. It would be to his advantage, he reasoned, should the populace overhear she-panther yowls emanating from his chamber. Days grew shorter. The citadel was hidden by morning fogs. Beets resembling the hearts of gnomes were piled in the storage cellars. Ducks lined up to buy their tickets to southern swamps. Mead was jugged, blades and leathers oiled. Wolves made clouds when they sang at night. Maybe that was where the frogs came from. Everywhere there were sounds of husks cracking, virgins dancing, and the rush of bees on last-minute sloping sprees, the roar of altars ablaze with some sacrifice. King Alabar was likewise undergoing a seasonal change. True to her word, Wren was his mare. And approximately once a week she discovered a white settler, aspiring to colonize the shady hirsute shores. She drove it promptly out of the neighborhood. More pensive than ever, Alabar shared his thoughts with her. I think that I am seeking something, he confessed once, as they stood alone in the western watchtower, overseeing from a bloodless distance the butchering of skinny beef. What I seek is neither spoils nor territory, new wives nor new glory, nor, for that matter, merely a lengthened life. What I seek was not on land or sea. What he sought was to become something singular out of his singular experience, and labor as she might, Wren could not understand. If the notion of an individual resisting death for his own sake was foreign to her, as indeed it would have been to anyone in that milieu, the concept of uniqueness of a single human life was alien to the point of babel. Preferring the chaos down in the cattle pens to her husband's God-offending nonsense, she shut it out entirely, and yelled encouragement to the butchers. Yet Wren served Alabar in ways beyond the call of duty. In an attempt to prove his stamina, the king set upon his harem like a starving rat let loose in a peach barrel. Night after night he rooted, rolled, and reamed. He climbed delicately upon Fral's swollen belly. He left June and Helga complaining of soreness in their nether regions. He generated funky auroras around the bodies of Ruba and Mag. He gave Alma a taste of her own medicine. Each night, when he had done with one or the other of them, he would rub their noses, tug their blonde braids, and send them back to their quarters to fetch Wren, while Alabar, exhausted, lay beside her, panting and making imprudent comments such as, "Wives are wonderful, but why did I have to accumulate so many?" Wren would fake her lioness cries. Mornings, while he dreamed of the relative tranquility of war, she would fake them again. In time, subterfuge shamed them both so deeply they could scarcely bear to look at each other. It was actually a relief when it was brought to an end. Noog the necromancer paid close attention to the king's activities. He had done so for years. He had chronicled Alabar's gradually declining sexual enthusiasm, so the desperation implicit in the sudden reversal was not lost on him. When he read verification of his suspicions in the intestinal text of several hens, he decided to see for himself. It so happened that on the morning that Noog stole up to the royal window after bribing a guard with a glass bead, Alabar and Wren were actually making love. Her phony demonstrations had excited him that dawn. After all, he cared for her above any other. So he had touched her stomach with uncommon tenderness, and soon her groans were being uttered in earnest. Disappointed, Noog was about to turn away when that magpie that rode upon his shoulder abruptly took flight and swooped into the king's chamber. Undetected as yet by the copulating couple, a long curly hair, as bright as an icicle, had unfurled during the night in Alabar's beard. The magpie flew directly to the hair, pulled it free with its beak, and delivered it to the gizzard-stained hands of the magician. Following a day of chanting, singing, and frenzied dancing by painted figures in animal suits, the execution took place at twilight. Awaiting his moral exit, Alabar sat on a bronze throne wearing, for the last time, a thick crown of hammered gold. In his lap he held the sacred turtle shell. The shell and crown rivaled the Egyptian looking-glass in the hierarchy of the city's treasure trove. At precisely the moment that the sun's eye winked behind the western hills, Wren stepped from a tiny hut of pine boughs constructed for the occasion, carrying on an ermine pillow the smoking egg. Without missing a cue, as if she had rehearsed for days, she dance-stepped thrice around the bonfire, then up to the throne. Supposedly, the egg had been laid by a viper, although Alabar suspected it was the product of Noog's magpie. In any case, Wren lifted it gracefully to Alabar's mouth, and as the singers fell silent and the dancers froze, he gulped it down. Presently he commenced to writhe, his face turned the color of pine boughs. He toppled over, green tongue lolling, thrashing about in the mud. Noog approached, recovered the crown that had spilled, and placed it upon the head of a young hero who had taken Alabar's place on the throne. Alabar kicked with both boots, then lay still. The new king flicked a dab of green foam off the throne. He raised his spear and smiled. Cheering broke out in the city, but it was short-lived because Mick lunged for the bronze chair and would have chewed off the occupant's leg had he not been restrained. No sooner was the hound muzzled than a new snarling began. This time it came from Frall, the 14-year-old concubine, who horrified the crowd by pulling the magic mirror from inside her maternity gown and smashing it against the logs of the bonfire. The burial mound was outside the city walls, in a field dotted with cow pies and large stones. The stones had been arranged geometrically in patterns that were supposed to mean something to the gods. Presumably, the cow pies had fallen at random, although then, as now, the division between what is random in nature and what is purposely is extremely difficult to determine. Warriors carried Alabar's body to the mound's summit, where a shallow indentation had been dug. After the body was laid in the hole, the councilmen covered it with dirt. They sprinkled mead on the grave. They chanted an incantation half as ancient as the stones in the field, words arranged like stones in sensuous patterns, words that saber-toothed tigers may once have overheard. There were no tears except the ones that Thrall had shed back in the citadel yard. Death was not a weeping matter. The indentation in the mound top represented the navel in the great belly. Alabar was back where he had begun. Birth and death were easy. It was life that was hard. Alabar was back where he had begun, but not for long. As soon as the funeral procession had wound, imitating the undulations of the serpent, back through the gates of the city, Ren ran from the shadow of an upright stone and started frantically to dig him out. Only 2 feet of earth lay over him, so he was soon uncovered. She had a vessel of mead concealed in her cloak, part of which she used to clean dirt out of his mouth and nostrils. The remainder she poured down his throat, a potent beverage. The mead gradually counteracted the effects of the nightshade belladonna that she had placed in the egg. Since belladonna in small amounts will slow a heartbeat, it helped Alabar feign death. Ren had also stuffed the egg with algae that she had scooped off the surface of a stagnant pond. It was the algae that had given the green cast to his skin. There had been no fatal poison in the egg. Alabar devoured. Following a plan they had devised in a week between Noog's discovery and the execution ritual, Ren had secreted Noog's death egg in her bodice while she waited in the hut, substituting an egg filled with algae in a non-lethal dose of nightshade belladonna. Alabar was considerably dazed, but as soon as he demonstrated to Ren's satisfaction that his breathing was of sufficient velocity to billow the sails of his soul, she left him. I must return ere I am missed. I have to prepare myself to receive my new husband. The last she said matter-of-factly, but she rubbed his nose poignantly before fleeing. As dazed as he was, Alabar had the presence of mind to let his body roll down the slope of the burial mound, which was starting to be illuminated by a rising moon. He came to rest in shadow. He also came to rest in a more or less fresh cow pie. He uttered no oath. I may be mad, he thought, but I prefer the shit of this world to whatever sweet ambrosias the next might offer. Okay, stop there. Very good. Oh man, 20 minutes. Well, that was a good one. Yeah, okay. Alright, soon again, more readings. Yes.